Hello, everyone. Welcome back to What Now, a podcast for Lost and Found. This is your host, Amanda. So happy to be here. If you are listening on the day of the release, then happy belated Christmas. I'm recording right now on Christmas Eve, but this show should come back out on December 26th. So this will be the last episode of 2023. Hard to believe I've already been doing this for a little over 2 months now. And in some ways it's getting easier. In some ways it's just as hard as I as I started, but it's been a lot of fun. So I hope for all of you who have listened to the first few episodes so far, I appreciate you, and your kindness and continued support means the absolute world to me. So I hope all of you had a wonderful holiday and you were able to see your friends and family. And if you did not get to do that, then I hope you were able to relax in the solitude and get ready for 2024 in whatever way best suits you and your current circumstances. But I'm excited for this final episode of the year. This will be with a good friend of mine named Lynett. We met when I was on safari in Africa last year, or 2023 technically. And she and I really hit it off. She was one of our tour guides and coordinated a lot of the events and hotels and lodging, and tracked all of our drivers and made sure we got to where we needed to go. So she was working while I was on the safari trip, but we ended up bonding and becoming close friends. And so I've kept in touch with her ever since that trip ended. And she's absolutely lovely. And she runs her own tourism and safari business out of Uganda. And it is primarily owned and operated by all women. And she has been promoting bringing more women into the tourism business, bringing more women into the economy in Uganda. And I just admire her very, very much. And so I asked her to be a guest on the show, and she graciously agreed. So today's episode, we are catching up with Lynett and hearing about her life in Uganda and her career path and how she got to where she is today, to owning her own business and helping it grow, and all the tips and tricks and lessons learned from her life. And I just appreciate her joy and her honesty and being so open with me. And I hope all of you who are listening will enjoy her episode as well. But yes, as always, feel free to leave some feedback, like, share, subscribe, leave a review, 5 stars, send the episode to your friends. If you know anybody that's interested in going on tours in Africa or visiting various countries in Africa, please take advantage of Lynett's vast knowledge and her immense networks. Just because maybe you don't want to go to Uganda, you might want to go to another country. She probably knows people that could help you with a good hookup in those places. So reach out to her. All of her contact information will be included in the show notes. And you can reach out to her at any time. And without further ado, let's get into it. All right, everybody, we are back with What Now, a podcast for Lost and Found. I am your host, Amanda, and I'm so excited to have my good friend Lynett here on the line with us today. We're so excited. Hi, so nice to see you. We are actually talking to her in the future because she is in Uganda right now, and it is her early morning and my late night. But we are so excited to catch back up together. Lynett, I met her in the summer of 2023 when my friends and I came to Africa and we did a safari tour. We hung out with her in Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Botswana, and she and I bonded. And now she is an honored guest on my show, and I'm so excited to have her here. Welcome, Lynett.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm
Yeah.
excited to be here. I still remember how we connected during the safaris in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Botswana. So It's always a pleasure talking to you. I feel it's easy, and I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, wonderful. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm glad you feel that way. That should make our interview go well. And I'm super excited to hear more again about your life. I know when we met, you were working, so and I was a client, which is different. So you, I'm sure, had to stay professional for certain parts of it, even if I tried to be goofy with you. So I appreciate you not going, this white girl's weird. Can't wait for our 3 weeks to be over. Um, yeah, no, super excited. So where are you right now? You are in Uganda, yes? I didn't just mess that up.
Yes, I'm in
Oh, okay.
Kampala.
All right. Yeah, okay. And you said you're at your office?
Yes, yeah, I'm at my office in Kampala. It's in Logogo.
Okay.
Just on the not on the outskirts of Kampala. It's actually in the middle of Kampala, just close to Kololo. So it's someone could say 2 hours away from the airport, but in the capital city. It's just in the center of the capital city of Uganda.
Very cool. And have you lived there the entire time or did you move there to open your business?
Growing up, I grew up in Kampala. So my parents had a business downtown in the busy parts of Kampala, doing a bit of trading back and forth. So I grew up close to their business, and our home is um, if there's no traffic, 20 minutes away. With traffic, it gets tricky, but it's
Can
20 minutes away from the city center. So that's where I grew up. That's the only home I've known. So I've been back and forth around Kampala all my life. Yes.
Gotcha. Very cool. No, that's awesome. During our trip we did not get to go to Uganda, so that's still on the bucket list to come back up there and do a different trip with you. So tell us a little bit about your business, because we're and explain, I guess, how you got connected to our tour group, because the tour group we have was not the group that you work with full time, right? Or were you
Yeah.
contracted out? How did that work? What business do you run, and what do you guys do on a regular basis?
Okay. So I've been in the tourism industry for the past 8 years. So I've been doing group trips, individual trips, packages for the last 5 years. For the last five for the last 2 years, I've been doing a lot of trips. But how I got connected on the group was through Obed, who was
Hmm.
the person who contracted me on the side. We have been connecting with him since 2019 when he joined the industry. He wanted to reach out to people in other countries because he's originally from Rwanda and
Hmm.
Congo. So he wanted when we connected or when we started talking online in 2019, he wanted to now start doing Ugandan safaris and was now venturing into tourism. So he reached out to me like, what can I do? How can we work together? You know? But then 2020 COVID happened and I was doing my own businesses here in Kampala. So he reaches out again in 2013. He's like, I have this group. Um, of ladies. I want to see, can you support me on this? Since you have been doing a lot of group trips and not only with groups, but also with individuals and small packs, you might be able to navigate the dynamics of managing a group trip. So my coming on the trip was mainly to be a team leader, but then also to manage the large number of the people who are working with the service providers because as we met in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Botswana, even there was a similar trip just a week before, then which was in Uganda, and there it was even more complicated because then we had 4 safari cars, and then we had driver guides, and then we had different accommodations we kept going to. So I had to manage the whole process to ensure that it's smooth for all the parties involved.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot of multitasking. It's a lot of personality management, probably language barriers, cultural barriers. So, uh, what was what was your favorite thing about those trips that you got to take with us this year? And then what was maybe something you learned during those trips? Either it could have been a mistake or it could have been just like, oh, I never knew that or anything. Like, what was your favorite part and then maybe not so favorite that you learned?
Let me start with the favorites because I think there are many.
Yeah.
I got to meet very many different clients because I mean all the groups had 30 ladies. So I got to meet and once in a while got to chat with the different clients, got to share experiences because some were ladies in their 40s, some are in their 50s. So even when you get like 5, 10 minutes to talk, it was good. I learned a thing or two, from them as I shared, as I did my job.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I really enjoyed the people that I was working with, the ladies, because remember we were working with in Uganda mainly purely we had a women led team. So that all the guys we worked with were women. And it reassured me of the ability of these ladies. The safaris got bumpy, the roads got tricky, the cars got messy, but these ladies were perfect, you know. They were like, if the car got a glitch, they would be like up and opening the bumpers and, jumping in there, checking out the oil, checking out this. And I was like, wow, you know. And it also reassured me of my skills and abilities because all the ladies kept saying, how are you managing all this? How are you still keeping your head on your shoulders? And I was not feeling the pressure that was coming with the job. They kept saying, Lynette, you look okay, but we're putting too much on you, because if any car got an issue, they'll be like, Lynette, this car has an issue. If any of
Right.
the ladies or the clients had an issue, they were like, Lynette, this. So there was a lot of Lynette, this, Lynette, there was a lot of multitasking. But I was enjoying. So it reassured me of, okay, even when other people on the outside looking in are saying, this is too hard and how are you managing? I'm okay. Like, even on your trip in Zambia, some people would be like, this must be too much for you. But deep down in my heart, because I enjoyed what I was doing, I didn't
Yeah.
feel like it was too much. Yeah, of course, I wouldn't do it like back to back for a year I would need definitely breaks along the way, but
Sure.
it was amazing. I was up and going and doing my thing. And even with the glitches and challenges along the way, I still kept my head on my shoulders and it didn't like weigh me down in any way. So that was a very good, good learning lesson for myself that, oh, you can do this and maybe even more. Yeah.
Absolutely. That
Challenges I faced were, of course, the different personalities of the people I was working with,
yeah.
you know, because we are all human beings with different interests and perspectives of life. We, of course, you know, knocked a few shoulders here and there. You feel in this particular situation you need to do ABC, but someone else on the team feels you need to do XYZ, and you're like, no, it has to be ABC, and they're like, do XY, and you're like, yeah. But it was a good learning lesson as well to see how to navigate different personality traits, and I'm sure it made me a better person. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I would I learned a lot about myself on those trips. Oop, my dog is barking. Somebody is upsetting him. Hold on just a second. Okay. Sorry.
Is he okay?
Oh yeah, he's just somebody probably drove by or walked by or something and he just didn't like it. So, but I put his
Ah.
collar on him. Yeah. Big boy, big baby. Mm.
Hello.
I put his collar on him,
Ah.
so if he acts up, I'll have to send him a little tap. Um, okay, sorry. Where were we? We were talking about lessons. Okay, yes. So I would, this also wasn't, oh, what I learned, right, about myself. Honestly, that I shouldn't be, I had not traveled internationally in a very, very long time. That was the first
Oh,
time in 10 years. So, like, I had flown to,
wow.
like, I had been to non-continental states. Like, I had been to Hawaii and Alaska and, Puerto Rico, but I had not been international in 10 years at that point. So I was a little nervous about, do I even remember how to do it? Am I going to look like a dumb American? Did I pack everything I needed? And truth is, no, I didn't get everything that I needed on the list. There were so many things that I definitely forgot. And last minute packer is a terrible trait to have.
You look perfect, by the
But I
way. You
looked
didn't look
fine,
like you
right? Like
forgot
I faked it
anything.
real well. You don't happen to still talk to Charles, do you? From the safaris
And
in
I
Botswana?
have his contact. I have his contact, but no, we
Yeah.
don't talk.
No. He DM'd me back and forth for a little bit after that, but I oh man. Anyway, I shouldn't laugh in case he actually listens to this. Hi Charles, if you do,
Is there a story there?
what's
It
up?
feels like there's a story there.
Had the story there. I don't know. I don't think you were there. I think it was just Obed when we did the bush lunch. Um,
Oh God, I
yeah.
thought about
So I
that.
don't know if they told you this that I embarrassed myself, but we had the bush lunch, but there wasn't exactly enough food for everybody to eat, and so I did not have very much. So Courtney and I didn't eat while we were there, but they kept serving all the wine, and so as we're getting the rundown for the day and people are taking their time, Courtney and I are getting more and more drunk, and Charles comes up and he starts, I guess, talking about what we were going to do on the safari days and like the plan to go back to the lodge. And then we were going to do the boat trip out to the island where the elephants were walking across. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I do not remember what it is that he said, but I spoke up in the middle of him and Obed talking. And I was like, hey, something along the lines of like, hey, Charles, what's your number? Or something like that. Just said it like out in the blue. And I was like, sup? And then everybody got quiet and they turned and looked at me and I was like, what? He speaks multiple languages. He's our tour guide. He owns a boat. Like, he runs his own business. He, he's clearly successful and loves his job. He gets to play with animals all day. Who wouldn't want to date him? And he walks up and he's acting like he's handing me a bottle of water. And I was like, "Oh god, like he's probably trying to tell me like, girl, you need to drink some water, slow down." And he leans over and says in front of everyone, "That number at the bottom, that's mine." And then he hands it to me and walks away and keeps talking to like the rest of the group. And like the whole group was like, "Oh." And I just hit on this man that I don't know, I've never met, never spoken to.
You
Um,
are hungry. You are
I would,
hungry.
well, girl, hungry and thirsty apparently. Like the irony in the fact that like I can't seem to get it right on my own homeland, but if I go abroad, best believe I have like no filter, and I can get plenty of phone numbers that way. So maybe that's the lesson. The true lesson is that I am my best, or I am my raw self if I go abroad.
Ah,
But yeah. Hi, Charles. I don't know if you'll ever see this or not, but yeah. So that happened. Oh man, I have a lot of embarrassing stories.
travel. I think travel does open parts of you that you didn't know existed.
Yeah, travel does. Yeah, absolutely. It exposes
It
you to.
also brings out uncomfortable parts. Like it
Yeah,
reassures you of the things which you didn't know. That's why I really love it and appreciate it and encourage everyone to take part because personally, I feel like it humbles me even more. The more I travel, the more I see, first
yeah,
of all, how big the world is, how
right.
diverse the cultures are. Because even when we were in Zimbabwe, I got to know of the religion of the people there, and the practices and the differences, But it also gave me a chance to appreciate what we have back home, and I think it also did the same for you when you had the Wi-Fi issues and, all these different glitches happening along the way. It makes you appreciate some things which you think are obvious, while in other areas or regions, they are hard to find.
Hmm. But it
So, yeah.
it definitely it reminds you what you take for granted at home, but then what you
Yes.
also should not stress about at home either. Like if you go to another country and these other people are happy doing something the opposite way from you, it doesn't necessarily make your way the right way as well.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah. Or they are with the
whereas
wrong way.
yeah, or that they're doing it the wrong way, right? It's just a different way
Way.
to get you to the
Yes.
same result.
Yes.
So that's been interesting. But I don't know if I told you the girls that I came with, we've decided to go to the Antarctica trip. So we're going to be in Argentina and go with Alyssa to Antarctica in 2024. I
Wow.
know. I'm turning into an international lady. So
That is great.
I'm excited. It's going to use up all of my PTO. I will definitely be in the red next year. Plus, my brother's getting married next year. One of my good friends that I used to work with is getting married next year.
Whoa.
We're going to Miami for a work trip and to hang out with my friend Courtney in May. So I'm 2024 is already booked and busy. So
That is good. That is
looking
so good.
forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, tell us how you got into the tourism business. Have you always been working in like safari tours, or what got you interested? Some people would think that, like, oh, that's the most epic job ever. And then other people might think that, like, oh, like you're outside all day, you're dirty, you're near animals, like you could get hurt. I'm far away from my kid, my husband, like how can you stand it? Blah blah blah, whatever. So what drew you to this particular job, and how long have you been doing it?
I love that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think I emphasize this enough, but I
Okay.
got lucky and got mentorship earlier on in my years, in my youth. Because I was still in high school and I got a mentor. And the
Mm.
mentor, I think my mentor was very radical and very, not the formal type of person. So even the advice he kept rendering was very random. He
Mhm.
kept emphasizing follow your passion, look for something that you love doing and see a way to make money with it. He kept saying it like this was in 2015. I was just, what, 19 years, and he kept saying, look for something you love to do and do it, you know. And I was like, what do I like to do? I like to travel. When I travel, I'm at peace, I'm relaxed, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of an introvert, so there are not so many things that I love to do, like this, that, the other. But definitely, I like getting my bags and going on a road trip. And I was young, so I had not experienced so many things. But I
Yeah.
remembered the memories that I had most of my family growing up were the few trips we had during Christmas season or Easter. And I really those memories were quite fresh. So I told him, I was like, okay, maybe tourism, maybe travel. And but then he was like, okay, that's good. So you look for any place in tourism, where you can start learning the ropes. Look for places to volunteer. So after high school, in my vacations for senior six, I tell him, okay, I've seen there is this tourism board, there is this tourism organization. He's like, write to them letters, go and volunteer there, you know.
Mm.
And one of the values of mentors is usually they let you feed into their networks. So when I told them that I wanted to work in all these places and I wrote letters to volunteer, he literally picked the letters and was like, okay, one of my friends works there. He took the letter. A friend of mine is friends with the minister of here. Okay, you know. So that's how the letters go to the tables of the people in charge. Because usually I think these volunteering letters are ignored. You know,
Mm.
even though you're
Interesting.
providing a free service. I mean, you're from high school, you don't know anything about the industry. Who's going to let you anywhere near their organization? So because of his contacts, I got an opportunity to volunteer, and this was in vacation of senior six. So as I was volunteering, I got reassurance that this is actually what I want to do, like for the rest of my life. you know. So I kept, and after senior my vacation, when the results came back, university, I applied to do tourism, and when university finally opened, I went and pursued tourism, but still kept volunteering,
Mhm.
and as I was volunteering, I was getting to meet more and more people in the industry, go to interact with different players. So here I am, 4 years, 3 years later, graduating, and I know most of the tourism players, not only in Uganda, but across East Africa. Because while I was working, I met people in Rwanda who invited me there, and I attended something they call Kwitizina, which is the gorilla naming ceremony, and it opened my mind like, whoa. I was like, okay, so if I've gone to Rwanda, now I have to go to Kenya, now I have to go to Tanzania. So here I am having contacts of all the big players across the region, and I'm just graduating, you know,
Mhm.
something which no one in my class had, because no one in my class had begun interacting with people in the industry 4 years ago. So here I am, even when I applied for a job, I had 4 years experience, just a few months after of graduation. And even before I graduated in 2019, because I had made contacts across the region, my first job before I graduated was in Tanzania, where I worked as a marketing manager, you know. Even before my results for university came out, I had a job in Tanzania. So I packed up my bags and go. It was not easy. I left my family. My mom she cried, so it was emotional. It was
No.
hard, but I knew I had to do it then because, I mean, I'm young. I have no tight responsibilities on my hands now. It's better I travel now as much as I can because I can. Later on, it might not be an option on the table. So I kept that at the back of my mind and went. And because I loved it, even the challenging jobs were not as tough. I came back after graduation 2019, worked in Kisoro where we have the mountain gorillas, worked there for some time. It was challenging, but it was good pay. So then I came back to Kampala and started contemplating the idea of having my own business. It's something which kept lingering, but I think because of fear, you're like, will I make it? What if I go and make a fool of myself? Can I handle it? Do I have the financial muscle, the mental capacity, the networks to build and grow and continue in that line? So until 2021, when I was like, okay, actually 2019, when I came back from Tanzania and started working in Kisoro, when I came back from that job, I was like, okay, maybe let's start. But even the starting was a bit, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like, okay, let me start this, let me grow this on the side, like a night job as I have a day job, you know. So it has been that back and forth. But then as I kept growing, there kept appearing a light, an emphasis on women, an emphasis on women in tourism because I also, as a girl, volunteering in my work, I faced lots of challenges, lots of obstacles, and most of them were just because I was a female, you know. So
Mm.
I was more intentional moving forward that how do we support women in this industry? The tourism industry has dominantly been looked at as a male dominated sphere, you know, even women. It's hard
Right.
for many women to go out and get married and have children and have families because most men don't look at them as like wife enough. You're traveling, you're running around. What kind of wife are you going to be? Who are you going to live with the kids? Very many have that. There's a lot of masculinity, and I don't know if is it called misogynist complex, where people feel like a woman has to be at home with the children. It's funny because we're in 2023, but it's still so vivid here in my
Mhm.
country, in my home, that even before I later got married and had a child, most of the partners I kept having were like, well, if we're to be serious, you have to quit that whole traveling thing. It was like either travel or me, so it kept coming back and forth, and not one, two people. It was like five, six people who are you think are educated. You can sit down and have a conversation, you know, but this was never something on the table. There is a point at which you get where your partner will tell you, yeah, you have to choose, you know, and it's a selfish thing, but People do it, and many people do it. These are people who come to you. Some of them literally come to you and they make it look like this is a gold mine. Like, so my offer is very good. Listen to it. It's either you leave this and maybe I'll start for you a business, I'll open for you a company. But as long as you leave the travel, and I'm like, okay, like it was never you love this, let me understand. No, it's mainly a dominating factor and a controlling factor. With them, it's never really like, oh, you like it, so let's talk about it. Maybe you can have it. No,
Yeah.
So because of that kind of politics, I understand what ladies go through with the industry. So that's why I'm always looking for ways. How do we bring in more and more ladies, more and more women? Even as I grow in my businesses, I'm always giving priority to the ladies. That's why when Obed came to me and was
Mhm.
like, oh, I have this group of ladies, and Alisa had emphasized she wanted female trip ladies. So he knew I had all the contacts because I had been working with them. And I think I also relate with their challenges because let me give an example.
Yeah.
In the July trip, in the August trip, we had like by April, we had gotten all the ladies we were going to work with. And we had even given them like deposit on their pay and everything to have them fully booked off for that time. So one of the ladies calls me in June. She's like, Lynett, I'm sorry I can't make it. I'm pregnant. I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, okay. And she's like, oh, when I'm pregnant, I have morning sickness. I'm always throwing up. Something I can relate with because I've gone through that. Was it a setback? Yeah, a small one. The good thing is there was also one who I had reached out to in April and had just given birth. So she had told me by August I'll be ready to go on the road. But I was not sure. I was still quite skeptical about her. So when this one tells me, oh, I'm pregnant, I can't. I'm like, okay, it's sad, but I understand because it's a phase in your life and you have to. If you can't, you can't. And it's good you have told me in advance, you have refunded the money. So I reached out to the other one who had just had a child and she was like, yeah, I'm good. We're ready to go. The child is now 6 months, is eating, can survive without me definitely, you know. So it showed me
Yeah.
that these are matters which some companies might not be able to understand, might not be patient enough to tolerate. But as someone who has gone through it myself, I know what it's like. The fear of, oh, I've had a child, I will not be able to work again. Who will be able to understand my situation? Who will be able to be patient with me and understanding, but still understand that I have the skills and abilities. So that showed me that for an industry which is fast moving, like the tourism, the travel, where you're always on the road, like you said, you're always in the bush, you're always, up
Mhm.
and running, there is need for that kind of empathy. So that's why I really emphasize on the ladies as I do my work.
Yeah. Has it been due to those cultural concerns, has it been difficult to recruit women to join your team, or are they more likely to join your team because you are female owned and operated? Like, is that a convincing factor for your business?
Yeah, yes, it is. But I think also there is a bit of unspoken understanding, you know. Like when we look at each other, like we're both women, we both know what women go through. There is that unspoken understanding of when you're in your periods, I know how it gets, I know how it can get,
Sure.
I can understand. When I am on my period, I know how it can get. So if you call me and tell me, I'm a bit grumpy, don't give me this safari, I'll be on my period, I will understand and I'll not hold that against you. Something she can not easily tell a male operator because he'll be like, so if I can't trust you here, when are you ready to work? Are you on your period the whole month? Like, because they don't understand the cycle so well,
Mhm.
um, or they don't go through it, some of the conversations become blurry. That's why even the one who told me, oh, I've just had a child, 6 months I'll be good to go. I was like, okay, if you're sure the child will be able to eat, You sure you'll be able to leave them? Because I wasn't sure, because personally I wasn't ready to leave my kid at 6 months. I was like, it's still too early. It's still too early, you know.
Yeah.
But if you feel you're good, you're good, you know. And then I later realized actually one of the other people who was on that team had also just had a child who was now 3 months, and I didn't know. And I was like, you didn't even mention it. How are you here and moving? And then she was like, well, my child is good. She's okay. I'm like, wow,
Aw.
superwoman. So it also,
Well, clearly they
uh,
love working with you so much that they'd rather just come right back.
yeah, there is that. But then I think they also, the economy is not the best. So they'll definitely want to keep working.
Mhm.
And I've also realized that not very many people want to give them the jobs or the opportunities. Even when we were in the field, you could see the male driver guides. They had some comments they kept throwing at them that were negative, you know. So they feel the pinch of, oh, now women are taking up our jobs, you know. So not all women are
Really?
ready to give fellow women the opportunities. Yes, it is crazy. You know, you would see them looking at them like, oh, now you guys are driving the big manual extended safari cars, you know, like the ladies were driving in Botswana. So in Zimbabwe and Zambia and Botswana,
Mhm.
women guides have been there for a longer time than they have this side. In Uganda, having a woman driving the last 10 years, it was not there. It is something as young as less than 10 years, you know. So most of these ladies have been driving for like 6 years maximum, you know. So even now when they're in the field, the male drivers look at them like, hmm, hmm, you know, I would have
Mhm.
gotten that job, you know. So there is still that unspoken friction. I get to see it, I get to feel it, and they also see it, and they're like, you see, the other drivers are laughing at us. The other ones are doing this, and I'm like, I see it, I understand it, it's okay, you know. And
Right.
then they're also
Have
facing
you ever had to
challenges back home.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Have you ever had to, like, stand up for one of your employees, or have you ever had to, like, handle a situation if somebody was being rude to them or being disrespectful, I guess, in that way? Or is it usually just one offhand type comments that you guys are just, rolling it right off?
Yeah, it hasn't gotten to the point of having to speak back at someone. Most of the
Mhm.
comments are below the table, like someone laughs and like, so you're still doing this and that, you know. So they're small comments that pass on sometimes as compliments, but they're like negative compliments.
Yeah,
So there are those
backhanded.
like sour grape kind of comments and vibes. So it's never really deep or you are doing this, you know. So you see it, you laugh about it, but you know it's wrong, you know. So to keep a calm situation, you don't escalate it.
Mm, okay. Um, Tell us a little bit more about what motivates you. I know you love traveling and I know you enjoy running your business, but what in particular motivates you to keep doing the safaris? It is a very labor intensive job, and emotionally intensive to handle all of that organization all the time, multiple times a year. So, how do you stay motivated, but also how do you relax and regroup after a big tour?
Okay, my biggest motivation is seeing the smiles on the clients' faces. That's just usually a wow factor because my country is beautiful. Africa is beautiful. So whenever I get to share that experience with the clients, that is a good motivator. But then also that I try to surround myself with a good team, a team you can trust, a team you can rely on, a team that you know will do a good job. That reduces, like, it does cut down the stress by like half. If you know you're going to be working with a lady called maybe Rachel, and you know Rachel is going to do her job to the maximum, it
Mm-hmm.
really helps you relax, you know. And then also because I'm not doing the work day in, day out, so what helps me with group is after the safari is like, I think I mentioned at the beginning of the this podcast is I'm a bit of an introvert. So I'm not someone who likes to go out party every night, every weekend, every what. Like literally I'm home, like Netflix and chill person.
Yeah.
So after the safaris, I just go home and relax. To me, that is relaxing. That's regrouping. I like to work out. I like to exercise. So I do more of that, you know, and plan for another safari.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a beautiful industry. It's a beautiful job. Once in
Hmm.
a while, I also take some of those trips. Like I plan a trip for myself and my family. I'm like, okay, maybe that kid is going to granny's, and I and my husband are going here for these days. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So, how many trips do you guys do per year with your business?
We're growing. We're growing, so the numbers keep increasing every year.
Yay.
This year we have had close to
Whoa.
35 trips.
Okay.
Yeah, so here we're looking at close to 2 to 3 trips every month. 2 to 3 trips every month. Yeah. Some,
Okay.
of course, during the peak season, they are close to like 4, 5, but average 2 to 3. Yeah. So yeah. And since
And
the year has not yet ended, we still have some fuel in December.
you still have a few in December, you're saying?
Yes, yes, yes. Because we have many people who are going away for Christmas, who are starting to move next week. We have those who want to move during 28th, then they come back after New Year's. So we have a lot of those. Actually, we have more of those who want to move before New Year, so they have their New Year's away, like on a holiday.
Very cool. That's exciting. You're staying pretty busy. That's good. That's huge and wonderful for your business and blessings upon blessings. What would you say is the best business advice you ever
Hmm. Received, I don't know, but I can give.
Oh,
Okay, first of all, okay, a general business advice is to, I think I've had this and it resonated. There's something they say, someone can say, don't eat your children. Like in business, don't eat your children. Like if you start a business and you make some profit off of it, it wouldn't be smart to spend that profit. It would be nice to reinvest that profit, in the business so that at least you don't eat your first level of profit. Because if you reinvest this profit, then maybe next time you get this profit, or this. So if you eat this, then next time you're still going to have this, which means you're going to block your level of growth. You're going to be constant or stagnant. And with the tourism industry, because it's very seasonal, there is need for intense planning, intense intentionality with your expenses, mainly financial expenses. I like a lot of, engage myself a lot in financial discipline and wealth generation and all that. So something I've noticed mainly with the tourism industry is how seasonal it is. Today you have clients, next month you might not get any because it's a low season. So if you have not planned well for your finances throughout the year, it's easy for you to be on a high and low, high and low, high and low, high and low, which is not sustainable for any business. So it's important to know that even on the days when you're crazy busy, you maintain a particular level of financial discipline so that you are able to stay afloat even on the days when it's dry. Because there are days when it's dry, months. Yeah.
yeah. No, that's very good advice. And staying on top of your finances is good. Making sure you have the surplus. Yeah. Uh, you gotta save some of that money first, and reinvesting it back into yourself makes a lot of sense. Yeah. That way you can grow and sustain yourself. What would you say was a mistake that you made when you first started the business? And what happened? How did you learn from it, and what did you do better the next time?
Well, just to put a disclaimer, I'm still making mistakes. I've not stopped.
Yeah.
But some of the biggest mistakes was to underestimate the the power of marketing on different platforms. So,
Okay.
and also failure to see the opportunities as they were when they were. There's something that people keep saying that an opportunity is like a snowflake. Like it's very, you either grab it when it comes or it can easily pass you by. So there are opportunities which have been missed because they have not been recognized for their worth, you know. So I think those are some of the mistakes. Like when I worked in Tanzania, I didn't take advantage of that opportunity as much as I should have, looking back
Mm-hmm.
now, you know. And I'm like, I had all this opportunity, why didn't I use it? I'm like, "Ugh, maybe I was young, maybe I didn't see it for what it was then, you know. So yeah, yeah.
Excellent. Those are really good lessons. What would you say has been your biggest achievement so far?
I think one of the greatest achievements so far is understanding or realizing those mistakes. Because if you don't realize that something you are doing was wrong, you won't know the right way to do it. So I think my greatest achievement now coming to the end of 2023, first was widening my scope, being able to do now, I mean, I can smoothly do trips in Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, you know, before it was
Mhm.
just the East African region. So that's a good achievement, being able to widen my scope to now the southern parts of Africa, but then also being able to identify or learn the opportunities that are out there, the diverse levels of opportunities and the and the possibilities that are out there. I think that has been a very, very, very good achievement on my side, because before you're able to do something, you have to know that it can actually be done. So now that I know, let's see how the doing part will unfold. But I'm very excited and glad that I now know better than I did before.
I love that. That's a really good reflection and self-awareness too. I'm sure as a boss, as a mother, as a wife, a friend, it's a lot of hats you have to wear, and it could get overwhelming at times. But that's really good that you've had the chance to think on that and not beat yourself up over it, right? Like sometimes you can stay in a negative headspace when something goes wrong or like gets messed up,
Yeah,
and
yes.
you don't want to do that because then you stay stuck. And it seems like you've done a really good job of actually, at looking at mud and
Yeah,
going,
because
well,
sometimes you're like, oh my
it'll
God,
be
I wish
okay.
I started doing this like 3 years
Yeah,
ago. I would be somewhere, but that back and forth doesn't change nothing. It just makes you sad. So
right.
learn your
Yeah,
lessons and move on. Now that you know, do better. Don't say, oh, I wish I did this like 5 years ago. You know,
yeah,
no.
yeah. No, you can't dwell on that. You got to look at what can I do now going forward.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So tell me a little bit about your current goals. Do you have any particular achievements you're looking forward to next year or things you're trying to accomplish?
Actually, I was talking to someone today morning, and I was re-emphasizing that yes, yes, yes. Moving forward, I noticed there is a gap in the information spread about tourism in Uganda, in East Africa, in Africa. I don't know what your expectations were before you came. I don't know if your expectations met what you found on ground before you came for your African safari.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel very many people have a very different perception of what Africa has to offer, of what safaris look like, of what the food looks like, of what to expect basically generally. So next year, one of my biggest like ambitions is to widen the level of information sharing. I want to be on as many podcasts as I can, and as many talk shows, on as many panelists as I can, but
Yeah.
mainly there, not just to fill space, but to increase the information spread about tourism in Africa, tourism in Uganda. If you're coming to Uganda, because I remember I was on a call with some travel agents from the US, and one of them asked me, are there five-star hotels in your country? And I was like, oh, I thought this was common knowledge. Of course we have very many. This was in my head, but I realized that you can't assume that people know. you can't assume that people know. So the more you talk, the more maybe people will get to know. So I want to just spread as much information about tourism in Africa as I can, about what people need to expect. Like if Amanda is coming to for a safari in Uganda, what should you expect in terms of weather, in terms of the food, in terms of people? Should you expect to have a smooth ride, or are there going to be some roads which are bumpy? There's going to be a bit more dust than you might be used to. There will be a bit of sun and rain and this and that, so the weather will be quite relaxed, you know. Don't expect to see winter not in Uganda. The food, expect to have a variety of foods, fresh foods, you know. So these are things which, you know, hotels, yes, some areas accommodation can become tricky, but in most towns, expect at least a 5-star, 4-star hotel. So these are things which might sound obvious, but are not, you know, and the only way we're going to grow our business is if more people know what they need to expect from us. So me saying that my goal is to increase my sales, yet the people I want to sell to don't even know what is out here. You know, I think
Yeah.
with more information spread, then the desire to travel more will be sparked, and that way people will definitely book the safaris and the numbers will grow.
Oh,
So that's my
absolutely.
plan.
I don't think I ever considered I let me backtrack. I have dated people that are from Northern Africa. So like Egyptian and Moroccan before, but I had never thought about traveling to Africa in that sense. So I personally didn't put two and two together until Mary, Mary Kate, who you met on the tour, invited all of us to come with her and to join this trip with Alyssa because she had loved everything else Alyssa had done. So she figured the Africa trip would
Mm.
be cool too. So of course, why would I turn down an epic safari trip? And you're right, I should go. I have the money and I have the time and I had the privilege of um that particular capability, so I wanted to take advantage of that. But you're right, I didn't. In America, you get a very different explanation of what Africa is like. And Africa, the continent in and of itself, is massive. Like, you
Yes.
know, massive. And so the what's available there is far beyond what I think anybody could really imagine, without having to live there personally. So I think that's a great idea to keep spreading more information and let people know what's available. Are you doing? I see sometimes you're doing YouTube videos a lot. You do seem to be taking advantage of like a day in the life of a safari guide or a day in the life of the lodge workers or a day in the life of a driver kind of a thing. Are you still doing a lot of videos that way, or are you trying to do more like media press like plans?
Mm, actually, my plan is now that you mention it, maybe I can look more into also spreading that information on my YouTube because my YouTube has been purely about travel and exploring. So when I visit a place and I
Yeah.
just record a few clips and just put it all together and be like, I was here, I did this. It's also an information sharing platform because that way I get to share of the places that I've been, but I'm looking to have more discussions like what we're having, you
Yeah.
know, where I'm talking to someone who has maybe not been to Africa
Hmm.
looking to come but doesn't know what's there, you know, looking to share my story of, okay, how is it being a woman working in the industry? You know, how those small, I'm looking to create more of a connection, you know, through the communication. So that it's not just, if you're coming to Africa, expect this, this, that, the other, the other. That way you get to talk to a real person who is in Africa with small, small things like, okay, maybe if you're changing currency in this country, there is the pula. You know, if you are a vegetarian, you need to have this, you know, pre considered in your brain before you come so that you don't have bad experiences. We like meat, we eat a lot of it. So you're going to see it on very many menus. It's not supposed to make you feel bad as a vegetarian. It's just what is in the culture. So there's need to do a lot of sharing in that regard. And I'm just looking to tap into other people's platforms as I do that That's why I'm looking at being hosted in podcasts, you know, uh, panels, but all these areas that I want to be hosted in are areas which tourism kind of focused. So if it's a panel about tourism discussions globally, or trends that are changing, or moving pieces in the industry, I would definitely love to be a part of that more and share what I know more as we grow, as we definitely grow the industry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think that's a wonderful thing to manifest and plan for your future. So I will also manifest that you get to go on the panels and do all the interviews and spread all the knowledge and the love and the adventure that Africa has. Have you been to every African country or
No,
just you've stayed
um,
south and east, you said?
yes. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
that's my expertise. But
Is it
I'm
is
looking to widen.
yeah,
I'm
one
looking to
day
go to the west
yeah, one
and
day
the north.
you will get to go to all the countries and your business will have a tour that anybody could take in all of the
Great,
countries.
great.
Yeah,
I
that's right.
mean, Amanda Paz has said so, so why not?
No, girl, I'm still manifesting all kinds of things for myself. But I do believe in the power of envisioning whatever that is, and either you write it, you say
I
it out
do. I
loud,
believe that.
you you practice it, and that's
Yes.
it might take 10 years for it to happen, but you did it, you said it,
But it will
you
happen.
made it come true. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Two final questions. First one, if you could give yourself advice 10 years ago, you know, what would you say to your younger self?
Hmm. Relax more. I would tell my younger self to relax more and also to believe in herself because the abilities that she holds are not going to be manifested with age. They are already within her. So there is need for her to believe in herself, to know that she belongs in the rooms where she is, and it's not just an opportunity or privilege, but rather something that she has worked for, and to trust the process that with all the hard work she puts in, it will definitely come back in one way or another.
Wonderful. I think that's fabulous. I'm gonna turn that into a clip and listen to that every day.
Why are you
And
like that?
that's something every
Why
little
are you
girl needs
like
to
that?
hear, no matter where she lives or what she's doing. Like it's already inside of you. You just need to tap into that. Okay. Final question. When are you coming to Nashville to visit me? Bring
When am I coming to Asheville?
yeah.
Definitely not in the winter. Not in the winter.
No. No. You can come in
We
June.
need
That's
to
when
plan.
they have the CMA festival.
Oh, wow. That's a good plan. Let's put a pin into that.
Okay.
I can definitely plan. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not
I start working backwards. But you said your whole year is busy. Will you be around in May?
yes, not early May. The first weekend in May is when I'm in Miami. But yeah, after that, we can talk
Wow.
about it. We can talk about it. All right,
Yeah.
Lynette, thank you so much for
Um,
coming on the show. I am so
Thank you
glad
for
to have you
having
here.
me.
Yeah, anytime. Please, you're welcome back whenever you want. Tell us about all your adventures and your
Next
trip.
time I come back, I'll be the one asking the questions. I definitely
Oh,
want to
okay.
ask more and more and more. Um,
Well, do you have a question you want to ask me now?
yeah, I just would like to know how have you managed or what are you doing in the process as you grow into what you know you can be and want to be? How do you be comfortable in the now as you aspire for what you want to be?
What am I doing right now to get me to where I want to go? Is that what kind of
Yeah, but
like?
like you said, what the name of the podcast is
Oh yeah, the lost and found. Right, right, right.
the lost and found. So as you're in that place of being lost and found, because I was like last year, I felt lost, I felt drained, I felt Like I was in a detour of my career and everything. And I'd like to know from your perspective, what does someone have to do in that state, like as they are lost, as they're trying to look through to find their way back to who they were, to who they wanted to be or want to be?
Hmm.
What do they do when like life hits you and you're back at 2, but you were at 8, and you know you want to get at 10, and know you can, but can't right now? What do you do? What's the next best step?
Yeah, the best thing to do. Honestly, the reason I started the podcast was because I was feeling that way. I had been working in the national security industry for a little over 10 years through essentially either studying it or actually applying it. Um,
Yes.
and that I did not realize that my identity had become so wrapped up in that particular career. And when I started to hit a brick wall, for lack of a better term, and during COVID, it became extremely devastating because I was associating that frustration and that failure with myself. Like,
Yeah.
you're not doing enough to get this career where it needs to be. Like, you've already been doing it for 10 years. You worked so hard to get to this point. You finally got the dream job that you did manifest. In one of the earlier episodes, I explained that um, my at the FBI graduation, my father had found a journal that I wrote in when I was 10 years old,
Mm,
and
yeah.
that he handed it back to me, and it said, like, I pointed to my dad today, and I told my dad today when I pointed to the FBI building that I'm going to work there someday, so I'm going to come back here and show him. And I didn't even remember writing that down, but I did eventually manifest that into a real thing. And so
Yeah.
letting go of that part of myself felt like I was a failure to myself, a failure to that like 10-year-old girl, and
Mm,
a disappointment, which is nothing anybody actually said to me. It was all like internal. It was all me thinking
yeah.
that.
Of
But
course. Of course.
um when I left, I did feel relieved. So I knew that that's how what I was doing was the right thing to do, but I didn't know where to go next.
And it's still hard.
It's still very hard. And that's why a little over a year after I had left, I was still struggling. And one weekend, I had a spark of creativity. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I made like a couple of Instagram reels back to back. I didn't have any plans that Saturday or whatever day I recorded, and I decided, you know what? You already have the equipment. Like, you tried to start shows in the past that just for whatever reason never got off the ground. Why don't you do it right now? Like, you're on fire. Like, because I was posting stuff and I thought I was hilarious. I was like, this is amazing. I need to take advantage of this moment. And
Yes.
I recorded the first episode and I published it. And as soon as I published it, I was like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. No one will ever listen to this, but that's cool. And then people did start to listen, and then people did start to comment and react, and they didn't necessarily think it was funny, but they did appreciate the vulnerability and the authenticity and the fact that I admitted that, like, yeah, I had this super successful career and I had opportunities right in front of me, and I walked away from them when most people my age, or most of my friend group is still up there in DC, or in Philadelphia, and they are still pursuing their careers, and they make more money than me now. They've surpassed me in those particular positions. Um, they're further along than I am now. Um,
Yeah.
if you're looking strictly technical at age group and like income, right? Um,
Mm,
some of them like relationship wise as well, like they either found a partner and got married in the last 3 years or whichever. So there's the triple threat if you're going to get real into comparisons. But i
oh.
I don't regret not doing it, but I'll be honest, I don't actually, the point of your original question, I don't really have an answer for how to tell somebody what to do or how to pull themselves out, because I am still actively pulling myself out. And that's why I
Mm,
started the podcast and called it What Now, a podcast for the lost and found, because I am doing fine. Like I I have a job, I have a really good life, I have a really good friend group here in Nashville. Like I have a good setup. I am not worried when I wake up tomorrow morning that like, oh, I've got this to do, this to do, this to do. I've got this bill, this bill, this. Like I'm not struggling to contribute to society or whatever, but I am struggling to find purpose in my life again, because I had wrapped up so much of my purpose in helping the nation essentially, and I miss that aspect. I don't Yeah, it's a tricky place to be when you're in your 30s. It's not quite a midlife crisis, but it's I like to call it a mild identity crisis that I'm having, and I want to get back to a place where I feel like I have purpose. Like I do like my job. It gives me the flexibility to live wherever I want and work whenever I want. But there are parts of me that clearly need a creative outlet and clearly needs to connect with other people. And I don't get to do that in the current position that I'm in. And so I wanted a way to make those connections and figure out how to heal and figure out lessons learned, and if there's something I could truly be doing better while I am trying to pull myself out of this hole. And I could not find another podcast that was covering this type of topic. So there are a lot of podcasts from therapists or psychologists or self-help groups or self-help speakers,
mm,
lifestyle coaches, etc. So there are a lot of people out there that are telling you how to live your life or the science behind why you're doing what you're doing,
yes.
but not necessarily a host who is actively at a loss. A host that is actively in pain or trying to figure themselves out by wanting to connect to other people's humanity. And that's what I know matters at the end of the day, is that people figure out how to communicate and see each other for who they are and where they are.
Mm,
And I don't know how to do that, so I'm trying to do that right now in the podcast. So I think the best thing I can offer other people, or at least what I've learned so far in the few podcast episodes I have done, is that when you're feeling this way and you are feeling lost and like you don't know who you are, or you wake up one day and you're like, how in the hell did I get here? Or
yeah.
how in the hell did I get to this place? Like this place where I don't recognize myself, or I don't recognize the decisions that I'm making, or I don't recognize
Or you don't
why.
feel you're getting what you should be getting.
Yeah, you're not
You're like,
progressing the way that you thought you were supposed to be progressing.
yes.
And obviously, like you said, there's highs and lows throughout your business, there's highs and lows throughout your personal life, but overall, it's a wave that you should be able to ride. But like when it's this and then this and then this and then this, that's chaotic. And that's
And I think that's what I was trying to also emphasize, that until early this year,
mhm.
for the previous 2 years, it had been 2 years straight, you know, and it kept, uh, there was need, like, and I really value your podcast because it
Mhm.
gives people a chance to understand that it's not always, because sometimes the up and downs, people think it's a bad month and a good month and a bad month and a good month. Sometimes it's a bad 1 year,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a bad 2 3 years. And the thing is, I think mainly with youth or young people, is they don't know that it can actually be a bad 2 years, a bad 1 year. They feel like if it's a bad 6 months, I have failed, I have lost it, like I'm not, I'm
Right.
done, you know.
Or
And
there's
there's
nothing else
need
I can
to,
do. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's nothing
I
else I
think
can
there's need
accomplish,
to.
or like the fact that you think you've peaked already at 21 and you're like, no, there's so much more. There's so much worse you're going to do first. And then there's so much better you're going to get after the fact.
Yeah.
But you have to learn, you learn so much about yourself, obviously, when you're growing through your 20s because you're changing the most. But like, I had a silly metaphor a couple episodes ago where I said like you spend your 20s mostly with your head in the ground, like because you're just trying to survive, you just got out of college. If you went to college, you just got out, you have to find a job, find a place to live, start paying bills, be an adult,
Yeah.
and figure out what it is you want to do when you grow up. And
Working,
quite honestly,
thinking.
everybody's acting like they have their stuff together, and the truth is nobody does. Nobody really
How
does.
long? Even those who are in their 30s, even those who are in their
Or
40s, who you're
yeah.
like, oh my God, I want to get to their point. They don't have it figured
No,
out. They don't
never.
even know
I
what to
don't know.
do.
I
They
think my
like.
dad honestly is like the biggest kid
I think
still.
we put too much pressure on ourselves.
Yeah, no. And I spent pretty much the day I came out of the womb putting pressure and goals and limits and expectations on myself. Like I was already operating at like this is the SOP. This is how nighttime routine is going to go. This is exactly the person I'm going to be. And if I didn't meet those goals or didn't accomplish whatever it is I set for myself, my standards were high, and not meeting my own standards was devastating at times. And I need to learn to be nicer to myself. And
We all do. We all do.
yeah, and that's hard. That's hard, especially as a woman. That's a lesson that you're going to be learning, I think, until you die. How to be nicer to yourself
Yeah.
and give yourself a lot more grace while you're trying to figure things out. And um, yeah, so that's the original answer to your question. I don't have an answer because I'm still trying to figure it out, and hence the name of the podcast, The Lost and Found, because you can be lost and find a place here, you can be found and find a place here, but hopefully by growing my community, I can help a lot more
Mm,
people feel found rather than lost.
true.
Yeah.
True. And I think it's important for people to be okay with the lost times
Yeah.
and know that being lost today doesn't define your future and shouldn't be a reason for you to be like, oh, I've failed or I've not made it. To be able to understand that you can be lost today and still get found tomorrow, and things can definitely get better. You
Yeah.
know, let them not use this as at, at, like the final. Let them not think that lost times are the final times. Understanding that there is a better tomorrow and a better next year is good, like keeping the hope alive,
Hmm.
and doing small things during this lost time that, when you get found, they will still be, valuable and essential during that time, you know. Remembering the priorities, family, even when you're lost, don't lose sight of family, and some small connections that cut across throughout.
How can people find you?
Thank you. It has been great being here. It has been great having me, connecting, chatting. It has been amazing. So people can follow me on Instagram at Lynett Lux Travel. I'm going to share with you the links. Then you can go to my YouTube channel. It's called Lynett Nakamanya, where I share some of my travel adventures. But you can also check out my website, which is Tugende Africa. I'll also share with you the link. And still, it's Nakamanya Lynett on Facebook for any other connections. Otherwise, I'm very excited for this podcast, and I'm open to share more about tourism in Uganda, about what people need to expect, about the experiences we have to offer as a country, as a nation, as a region, and all like travel questions can definitely be skewed towards me. Yeah, and thank you, Amanda, for having me, and looking forward to more chats. And I'll be coming to Asheville Next year, let's plan for that. Definitely.
All right, that concludes our episode of What Now, a podcast for the lost and found. Thank you, everyone, for listening and tuning in to hear Lynett's story. Since we did record it virtually and she was in Uganda at the time, a bit of our connection was spotty, but I pieced everything together as best I could. So I hope everyone who listened to the show has enjoyed this particular episode and you learned a lot from her. I know I definitely did. But just to close everything out, always remember you can like, subscribe, rate me, leave a review, 5 stars, share with your friends. Let me know if you have any feedback about the show, if there's any topics you would like to cover or hear more about. You can always email me at askwhatnowpodcast@gmail.com. If you are listening on Spotify, there is a link at the bottom of the description box. If you want to send a voicemail message, you can always ask me questions that way as well or provide feedback like that. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.